I'm a proud Indian. I would like to I would like to definitely grow my business, and I can proudly say, 99.9% all my goods come from India. And in 3 years, this business had become so big that I could, easily quit my day job and get into it whole time. Most of my clients are 60 plus. So they're the ones who own these beauties. Especially doing business in America, you are your own boss, you're your own driver, you're your own cleaner, your own marketing executive. Believe we can do a better job than China as far as quality is concerned.
What is retirement for you?
When you cannot walk.
Do you think the government is the problem? The very reason that I invited you on my show because as we are good friends, that's one of the biggest reason.
Right.
And the second reason, I know you gave me some idea about your business, but when I came to know that what you do exactly, I was very curious about it because I never heard in this, especially in the Silicon Valley, Bay Area, like everyone is running behind the IT. Okay. And I came across a person who is doing a business which is completely different. So my very first question, how this idea of starting a vintage car spare parts business came in your mind?
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. It goes back 20 years. I was toying with like a B2B website, and I little did I know, that what kind of work I'm going to be doing. I had little exposure before working for an export company, and that sounded pretty nice to me. Dealing international, I was drawn towards that side. So while going through those B2B website and the queries that you get, there were only a handful of B2B sites back in those days. So one of the queries was from Australia, and this gentleman wanted, a rubber part made. And since my day job was working with factories that made rubber parts, it was just up my alley, and I knew the factories where I could have this part made, and that was the starting point.
So that guy who inquired for that particular rubber part, he was in Australia.
He was in
So
Australia.
you contacted him. What exactly happened?
So yeah, he just sent me a sample, and we communicated through this B2B website. And I quoted him a price. He was pretty happy with the price, and we moved on to the development, and we sent him a sample. It was approved. And he then started asking me for other parts, different kind of parts.
Mhm.
And it was a slow and gradual process. And since it was a niche market and the margins were good, so it was money was never a problem, into the business. So I just rolled back all the money I made in the business, and this was like back in those days was like you say, it was kind of a side hustle, which became my big business. So in I would say from 2004 to 2007, in 3 years, this business had become so big that I could, easily quit my day job and get into it whole time. And that's the time in 2007 when I searched on the web. Um, I came to know that America is the biggest marketplace of vintage cars. It's like you called it the mecca of the world. And that's the time I made my first trip to America in 2007. So kind of my journey begins there.
Awesome, awesome. So, like you started in India, you came over here. What is the biggest difference of doing the businesses in India versus in USA? You see?
I would say India is more challenging for the simple reason, in spite of the digitization we've had there and very advanced level we have, I still feel there's a lot of paperwork. There are a lot of regulations. So to say, the ease of business is we're still not there. Here it is more easy. It's regulated, very well structured, and it's really not very difficult to follow the instructions. The timelines are short. Your approvals, your registrations, they all come in a fixed, period of time. Versus India, it's more complicated. You need inspections, physical inspections. There's a lot of paperwork, and I don't see an end to the paperwork, and especially after the GST, which has come in. in a way, it's increased the paperwork, especially for small businesses. The bigger businesses, it's easy for them to do the paperwork because they have a team, dedicated team. But the challenges come for the small business. So I believe there should be less paperwork for smaller businesses, because that will help them grow. Because I think the small business is buried under the paperwork today in India, and that's a big challenge. My primary reason of coming to the US was that this is a very niche business for vintage cars. The business is not very voluminous. It's profitable though. But to be able to do this business, you have to be here in the US because these cars are simply not available. So to find the right parts, to check the fitments, everything, it's easy to do here than sitting there in India, And then also it was easier for the local American buyers to deal with an American company because again, the American laws govern all the business here, versus, if you're doing it from a third country. So that was for ease of operations, for ease of business. The major market is here, the cars are here, so it's much easier to do business here, and that's the reason for me to move here and do business.
So you mentioned 20 years back when you started, you are facing the same kind of problem. You visit India frequently, and do you still see that kind of problem still exist in India?
Well, when it comes to manufacturing, yes, the timelines are not met. Our engineering is good, but the skill set is not there, unfortunately. Especially when I'm talking about my business, it's not voluminous. It's a very, small business. The numbers are small, so the challenges are also bigger because where will you find factories? Bigger factories don't want to do small volumes, and the small factories don't have the equipment to make those parts. So you're kind of sandwiched in between. So it was a big challenge trying to get the better equipped factories to work with that kind of quality and the smaller volumes. So that is still a challenge in India, And then timelines are is always a problem, because of so much of structure as far as paperwork is concerned, is the manufacturing. I think the mindset of people, the exposure of Indian businesses to international trade is very, very little. I think they need to have more exposure so they understand the professionalism, the way manufacturing is done in other countries. And that's the biggest thing, Then I feel that they need more exposure. We need the government to help bring up small businesses in a big way because that's a vacuum that India still has. They need to bring up their middle class industries, the small scale industries, give them more exposure, give them help, and expose them to world manufacturing.
How can they get the more exposure? Like, are you saying government should do something?
Yes, without government support, look, China couldn't have been where it is without the government support. So I believe the government has a big role to play. Whenever the delegation is going overseas, uh, I think the Indian government should encourage and have more small businesses going overseas to visit the factories, to see how they work, to understand, what the gap is. And then I also feel that, we need to catch technology from the modern times, not from something or machinery or technology which is 10, 20 years old, because that will not work. The bigger factory is doing better than the small and middle class. The small sector is really a neglected sector. You cannot have the same rules for the smaller sector and the big factories. The small factories will make a chunk of your business and their potential is still unleashed. I believe that we could be 10 times bigger in economy if the small sector is really trained and given that exposure and given that help financially to upgrade the technology, to also have the skill set. Even the training centers today, it's the training has to also change. There has to be modern with besides modern education, the practical skill set needs to be upgraded. They need to work on the fast machines. They need to work on the modern technology machines and technology. So to understand, and get the costing down.
Apart from selling this in the store, you have online portal as well.
Yeah, I sell through my website. I sell through. I have a team. I have I have some wholesalers I sell to. Those are very old associations, and then my majority sale is still through eBay Motors.
Nowadays, like everyone is using Amazon. Why you are still like associated with eBay? Is there any particular reason?
I did try working, selling my auto parts through Amazon, but my experience has been better, much better with eBay Motors because they are more focused and there's a major following. It's a more structured, and exclusively for my kind of work.
Which particular country has like most amount of vintage car people are driving? Is it only USA or are there any other countries which are into this vintage car fashion?
I would say America is the biggest. US is the biggest, followed by I would say Europe and then Australia.
Mhm. So, and what is the age range of your audience?
That's an interesting question. Most of my clients are 60 plus. Well, they're the ones who own these beauties.
Did you face any challenges in the beginning while starting your business?
Well, I was sailing in two boats. I had a day job,
Hmm.
and then I was, trying to get my business off its feet. So it was challenging.
How did you manage both?
Well, I used to work in the evenings, especially with my communication with my buyers, and then also, yeah, I used to visit the same factories, with whom I was working. So it was kind of, like an overlap. So it kind of worked for me. And thankfully, I could just do it for 3 years. In 2007, I went my way whole time into it.
What is the best financial advice that you ever received?
You should reinvest into your business every 2 to 3 months.
Do you need to be a really good salesman, in order to run your business? Or do you believe in like hiring a really good people?
You see, for small businesses, I think you have to wear all kinds of hats
Hmm.
because especially doing business in America, you are your own boss, you're your own driver, you're your own cleaner, your own marketing executive, you're your own driver for delivering things. So here, because labor is so costly, so you have to wear any hat. You should be prepared to wear any hat. What the business demands.
Also, one of the question I wanted to ask, like you're all settled over here, right? From you said you came in 2007 and started settling down over here.
Right.
But this is like question for most of the immigrants. Indian or doesn't matter that immigrant is Indian or any other immigrant. But there is always a thought of like, hey, one day we want to go back and settle down in India. Do you ever feel like that?
I kind of quite like here because my main business is here, so I would like to stick on. Yeah, I mean, visiting India is fine for me. That's what I think. But my main business is here, and I don't plan to retire soon.
Mhm.
So that thought is still in the future, and we'll see, when we come to that stage.
What is retirement for you?
When you cannot walk.
Do you still want to continue the same business, or like do you want to do something else where you don't need to put much efforts?
I would like to get into an all American business, which is, based out of America, and I don't have to travel to India because it's not easy. As you grow old, it's not easy to go back and forth, and unless you have a big family or someone who's there to handle the business. So it's kind of challenging. I mean, if the business is, it all depends on how big the business is. But I would prefer, at my age, doing a small business to be comfortable here, doing a business which is not making me go back and forth to India. So at some stage, I would like to, retire from this business and then look forward to doing another business, which is, I don't have to travel too much.
What financial advice that you would like to give it to the new business owners?
Look for a business, look for a niche, and that you can at least be like a couple of years ahead of your business competition, and always evolve your business. Keep be alert as to what's happening around you. Get involved with the businesses, with your community. So exposure and being um, in touch with the business community is very important. You should be knowing what's happening, the latest, why things are slow or fast, what are the trends that are going to be coming. So I think it's got to do with visiting a lot of business fairs, to be traveling, talking to people. That gives you a lot of insight and knowledge.
I get this question a lot from my friends who are in India. Hey, I want to do import export business. So, what is the way of doing it? Can you go a little bit deeper into that?
Have to basically submit a plan.
Okay.
A lawyer who works with immigrant visas or non-immigrant visas will be much better, suited to answer this question. But just to give you a ballpark mark as to what this visa is. So basically, you need to employ 10 people within a period of 1 year after you come here to the US. And so you need to make sure that your business can grow to that level where you can employ 10 people, because you're talking of a couple of $1,000s of running payrolls. It's not easy for new business unless the potential's there. So it will be better that you come and either buy a business which already has 10 employees, you buy a company, or you build up the business. So it's not going to be easy.
So, if your business plan is concrete,
Yeah.
once you submit your documents with the help of immigration lawyers, even though you are sitting in a different country, uh, US government can give you 1 year of L1 visa. That is what I understood.
Yes. So there are other ways to come and do business here. One is you can buy a business which is worth $1 million and employ 10 people, or you can, then invest in the EB-5 visa, which is the investment visa.
Okay.
So you invest in a government approved project and then you get the green card. So that's how you can stay here and then slowly build your business. Then there is no need to create jobs, because that job creation is done by the EB-5 visa.
Okay. So I heard for the EB-5 visa, you need to have that investment in different states, not states like California.
No, it could be in any state, yeah.
Oh, it could be
Wherever
any
the
state.
projects are, yeah.
Why India is not yet the manufacturing hub of all the material compared to China? Because I see we have cheap labor, we have lots of people over there, but why do you think is we are not there yet?
India is a democratic country versus China, which is a communist. So the way the government, has laws framed in China are very different from laws framed in India. So being in a democratic setup, there are certain things that is not available to the industry. The government plans in a different way. So I believe if India is to come anywhere close to China on the manufacturing side, they need to stress more on the mid-size businesses, the small businesses, because that's the heart and soul of India. Mhm. And that is a very neglected sector. Right now, the way the ease of doing business, as they say in India, is not up there. You still have a lot of paperwork, a lot of challenges, a lot of regulations, a lot of red tapeism, a lot of bureaucracy uh, that you need to take care of before you can have a successful business in India. That needs to change, especially for smaller businesses. You cannot have the same rules for bigger businesses and the small businesses. The bigger businesses have dedicated people for their paperwork. The small businesses always have a challenge. Mhm. They outsource this mostly from professional people, but with so much of paperwork now in the last 5 to 10 years, is becoming really, really impossible for small businesses to devote time to their own business. They are just getting so involved with the government regulations, to be, especially now GST is a big concern. There are frauds happening in India every day, and they're trying to club that. What happens is they're squeezing the good paymasters also. So just because of some rotten eggs, the good people are also, bogged down with so much of paperwork, compliances, and everything. So compliances are good, but ease of doing business, you need to make the environment comfortable, easy for any business to run in India, which is not there. Mhm. That's number one. Number two is the skill set. Indians have the largest force of young people, but what are they doing? How much skills do they have? Mhm. The way we've been trained is just bookish knowledge. The skill set is not there. The training on the modern machines is not there. The availability of modern technology is so expensive that it doesn't even cover up a fraction of the cost of manufacturing. It is so expensive to do things in India for the simple reason everything costs more. So it has to be subsidized for the smaller industries to be able to get hold of the latest tools. In my case, I'll give you an example, just to make it easier for a common person to understand. I I do small volumes, so it's so difficult to work with the mid-sized factories or the small scale sector. They do not have the equipment to do the small runs. Versus the bigger factories, they have larger capacity and production. They don't want to do smaller runs. So I'm sandwiched between there. Even for high tech, there are factories, there are only, a number of factories that will only can do that high tech jobs. Say I want to do business with aerospace or with the medical equipment factory. It's so difficult to do that fine toolings and the fine making the fine products in India because the machinery, the technology is simply not available there. And even if somebody wants to invest, it's the interest rates, the machinery is so expensive, it has to be subsidized so that the small scale industries can actually grab hold of the new technology.
Digitization has increased. Okay. They are supporting the small businesses, giving subsidies to the small businesses as well. Is that not happening in the manufacturing industry?
Yes, digitization is amazing. It's much better than before, but the compliances have grown. The compliances have grown.
And that's the reason the paperwork has
And
increased.
that's the reason the paperwork has increased.
Mhm.
So everything is taking much longer now.
Mhm.
There are more rules and regulations every 2 months in India, which you need to follow. And that basically becomes like a block, in your speed of work or the accessibility of doing work in India. And besides that, the skill set, we need the small businesses need more exposure, international exposure. And that can happen by inviting, like taking the whole small scale industry overseas, making them go to the factories to see how business is done, how manufacturing is done, what are the tools they use, what kind of technology they use. So that exposure is lacking with Indians. Also, that temperament, that professionalism, those systems are lacking in the small factories.
What do you think the reason behind we are lacking in so many different things that you mentioned?
They definitely lack this exposure of professionalism. Time commitments are very seldom met, unfortunately. And that I do not blame the manufacturers. The situation, the whole environment is so complicated that it's impossible for a small business owner to not only take care of all the compliances but also take care of the quality control with the kind of equipment and manufacturing systems he has in his factory.
Do you get your delivery on the time or there is always a lag?
I seldom get my delivery on time. There are very few manufacturers who can deliver on time, and I don't blame them 100%. Is the environment is not that great. They need to upgrade their systems. They need more capital that people are putting probably in the stock market. They should help the small industries. If that capital is diverted somehow or invested into small sector, it will help them grow.
Do you think the government is the problem? Or let's say the next time different government comes, do you think they can solve this problem? Or
I think it's you clap with two hands. So there are certain challenges with the government, and there are certain challenges with the mindset. And the only thing that can work together is more exposure for the, for the small scale, and a little bit of relief from the government can really help the small scale sector to grow in India. And that has great potential.
So you never thought about, manufacturing your spare parts from different country apart from India, like Bangladesh or China?
It's not easy going to another country. First of all, language is a barrier. You know, language is definitely, if I don't know the local language, it becomes a barrier. So my comfort level of doing business with India is because I know the language. I know the language in America, I know the language in India. So that makes it more easy. But that's just a small issue. But I'm a proud Indian. I would like to I would like to definitely grow my business, and I can proudly say, 99.9% all my goods come from India. Late or sooner, but they come from India. And I like to keep it that way. I have my team. I've spent 20 years in this business. I would love and train and help, my vendors grow their quality and provide them with the raw material or the technology to grow, then go to another country and do it. I believe we can do a better job than China as far as quality is concerned.
What are the biggest challenges that you face living in USA?
Getting connected with the community at large. So living in America for me is living with diversity, right? And still becoming a part of it. So acceptance, communicating, networking, those are all the challenges. There are very few opportunities, if language is a barrier, so to say, there are a lot of barriers, that you need to cross. The first barrier you need to cross is, say, I'm an Indian, I come from India. There are people from 10 or 20 states from India who come with different languages. I don't understand their language like I don't understand Europe. So they are aliens to me, though we are from the same country. So what normally happens is they only, get into a community where people speak the same language. And that only not happens for people from India. It happens for people from all over the world. The Russians will network with Russians, the Japanese will network with Japanese. But how many areas are where the whole community gets together? That is a challenge to find, common interests or common platforms where people do the networking. So I believe we should have more social events in America where diverse people meet each other, talk to each other, and I think there should be just one language, which is the language of the land, which is English. So everybody should know English, whether they come legally or illegally. Those are other challenges of illegal immigration that America is facing today. So, but I believe there should be more social events in the communities, which will not only increase the love and affection among each other, but also make it more livable and a lovely place to live in.
Do you think young entrepreneurs should come to USA and start their business over here?
I would say that America is a great place to work and get exposure and work experience. But the opportunity as far as manufacturing is concerned, I think that lies back in India.
No.
Because the next 20 years, I believe, is going to be India's time. And with government support and the right mindset and the exposure, I think we can beat China.
Why manufacturing in USA is so expensive?
It's basically expensive because of the minimum wages and the cost of living here. They can only manufacture something which is very high tech, which has a lot of profitability in it, like defense or research projects. So those kind of things are very easy to do here. The only way manufacturing can survive here for other products is if there are tax-free zones, and everything is subsidized. Like in India, you have tax-free zones, tax-free areas for 10 years where industry is welcome. So if you have something similar here in America, then that's possible.
How different to run a business in California versus some state in USA? For example, let's say some state in Midwest like Wisconsin.
Yeah, I don't know much about Wisconsin, but for California, I can definitely say the taxes are very high. The state taxes are also a big deterrent of doing business here. Uh, the laws, the environmental laws, the other laws are also sometimes a challenge for a lot of industries. Um, I believe those factors and the cost of living in California is very high.
You ever thought about moving to different state where, like, the cost of living is less?
Yes, we've thought of moving to Florida, but again, I think the weather is much better in California, and that keeps us here, and we pay a cost to live here.
Yeah, that's true. And also in Florida, there is no state tax, right?
There is no state tax in Florida. Yes.
But there are lots of crocodiles.
Every place has its own plus and minuses, but I think we are sticking to California for now because of the weather.
So that is the best thing that you like about California, or is there any other thing that you most like about California?
I think weather is the nicest thing, and people are also nice. We've never had any discrimination issues or any other issues. People are very helpful. The government is very helpful, and we've been able to survive so far.
Also, California and New York, I think these are the two states where there are lots of diversity.
Yes, I would agree on that point.
Do you think that is the one of the factor that keeps most of the immigrants in states like California and New York?
Definitely, it depends on what the work is. More on financial side, they move to New York. More on technology and development and research is here in California, in the Bay Area, and it all depends on what kind of work.
Thank you so much. It was great having you on our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here.